All right, get those bets ready. We're diving deep into horse racing today.
Big money on the line today.
The Ladies Turf Sprint at Gulfstreampark, no less.
With a purse of $140,000.
And we're going to see if we can pick a winner.
Or at least narrow down the field.
Using some expert predictions, of course.
From the Racing Form Report.
But we've also got the race program, too. Raw data, baby.
So we've got the stats and the expert analysis all in one place. That's fascinating, actually. We can compare the program notes with what the Racing Form Report is saying and see if we spot anything interesting.
Yeah, I've got the program notes right here. Past performances, steed figures, even some track bias stats. And then we've got the Racing Form Report, their expert analysis.
Exactly. Can we use all this info to, crack the code, predict the winner? I think so.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah.
And looks like we've got some interesting contenders. Got a favorite, a strong challenger, maybe a wild card.
Oh, and don't forget the dark horses. Always a possibility for a shakeup.
They could definitely surprise us. All right, well, let's start with the favorite, just a care.
Prime power rating is the highest in the field, 147.5. Not bad.
Whoa, hold on. Prime power. Remind me what that is again? And speed figures, too, while you're at it.
Right. So prime power, think of it as overall strength based on how a horse has been performing lately. Higher the number, stronger the contender.
Okay, makes sense.
And then speed figures. Those tell you how fast a horse ran in a specific race. But they take into account things like track conditions, so you can compare performances from different races, apples to apples.
Gotcha. So just a care. She won recently, right? At this track and distance?
Yep. The Abundantia Stakes, actually a few other horses in this race also ran in that one.
Ooh, okay. So that gives us a direct comparison, right? How they performed against each other.
Exactly. We're talking head-to-head competition. Now check this out. Just a cares trainer. Brian Lynch.
24% win rate.
That's right. And the jockey, Luis Saez, 14% win rate. Pretty good on their own.
But together?
They've won 40% of their last 5 races.
Dynamic duo, right?
Thanks, great.
Good omen for just a care, maybe.
Well, trainer and jockey stats are definitely something to consider, yeah, but it's not a guarantee.
Of course. I'm just saying. It's interesting. And actually, the Racing Form Report points out that Lynch is really good with horses second off a layoff. And guess what?
Just a care is second off a layoff. All right, let's move on. The challenger, Karaya. Strong prime power rating, 138.6. Last race speed figure, 98. Pretty consistent performance. Hits the board in most of her starts. Oh, and she placed second in the Abundantia Stakes right behind Just a Caro.
Okay, she sounds like a real contender.
She is. And her trainer, Mark Cassay, 18% win rate, known for his turf horses.
Plus, she's got the legendary John Velasquez as her jockey.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, 14% win rate. But here's the thing.
What's that?
Karaya's a closer. Likes to come from behind.
Uh-oh.
In a short sprint like this, 5 furlongs, that could be a problem. Speed is key here.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what about Beauty of the Sea? The Racing Form Report calls her a wild card. Lots of potential.
Second highest prime power in the field, 141.1. And experience in some really tough races.
Plus, she's got that strong closing kick, like Karaya.
But her trainer, Christophe Clement, 21% win rate on turf.
Okay, that's impressive.
It adds to her appeal, for sure. But here's the question. Could a fast early pace actually set her up for a late win? Something to think about.
Ooh, suspense. Now, for the dark horses. Always got to love a good dark horse. The ones that maybe, just maybe, could outperform expectations.
Exactly. Full of surprises.
So Freedom speaks. First off, she's dropping in class, meaning she's running against slightly weaker competition this time.
See potential there.
But
yeah,
she's also been off for 6 months.
That's a long layoff. Risky.
Her trainer is Heather Smullen. Only a 3% win rate.
It is concerning, yeah. Long layoffs. They can go either way. Sometimes a horse comes back refreshed and ready to go. Sometimes they're, rusty.
A real gamble. All right, then there's Weekend Rags, the opposite situation, really. She won her last race at this very track and distance.
Very promising.
But she's stepping up in class. Can she keep up with the big dogs?
That's the question, isn't it? It's always a challenge, stepping up in class.
She's trained by Jorge Abreu.
23% win rate in non-graded stakes races. That adds to her appeal.
Interesting. So we've got Just a Care, the favorite, coming off a win and with a hot trainer-jockey combo. Then there's Karaya, consistent performer, but that closing style in a short sprint.
Don't forget Beauty of the Sea. Could be a setup for a late surge, especially with that trainer.
And of course, our dark horses, Freedom Speaks, and Weekend Rags, each with their own unique circumstances.
Definitely make you think. Lots to consider. It's a real handicapper's puzzle, isn't it? Who do you go with? The stats, the gut feeling, so many factors.
And let's not forget, we've also got those track bias stats from the program notes. The racing form report doesn't explicitly mention this, but it looks like early speed horses have a slight advantage at Gulfstream.
Oh, yeah, the track bias. It's interesting they don't emphasize that. The stats show over the entire meet, 67% of winners at this distance have been early speed types.
Wow.
And if we narrow it down to just this week, those impact values really show how strong early speed and pressing styles have been performing.
So that could really impact things, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it might give an edge to horses like Just a Care, you know? She's shown early speed in the past. But it raises some questions about closers like Karaya and Beauty of the Sea.
Right. They'd need a perfectly timed run, wouldn't they, to overcome that early speed bias?
Exactly. Okay, so are you ready to see what the Racing Form report thinks? Their top picks?
Let's do it. Drum roll, please. Their top pick for the ladies' turf sprint is Just a Care.
No surprise there. Going with the favorite.
They call her the clear standout in the race, pointing to her prime power, speed figures, that recent win at this track and distance. And they seem pretty impressed by her trainer-jockey combo, too.
Makes sense. Focusing on the stats, the connections. But are they giving enough weight to the track bias?
Okay, so for second place, they've gone with Karaya.
Yeah, I see that. Solid contender.
They do express some concern about her closing style, though, especially with that potential speed bias.
Yeah, a valid point.
They even say she ran a great second to Just a Care in the Abundantia Stakes. It makes you wonder, if she'd won that race, would she be their top pick now?
That's horse racing for you. One race can change everything. Perceptions, predictions, everything.
Okay, what about third place?
Who'd they go with?
Beauty of the Sea.
I'm actually a little surprised by that. I mean, there are some other contenders I might have ranked higher.
Yeah. What makes you say that?
Well, I mean, she's got consistent performance, yeah, and a strong prime power class rating. And her trainer, solid win rate on turf. But with the track bias favoring speed, I don't know.
But they do point out her closing kick and the possibility of a fast early pace setting her up, right, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's see. The dark horses. Drumroll, please.
Freedom Speaks and Weekend Rags.
All right, just like we discussed, I'm curious to see how they justify those picks.
So for Freedom Speaks, they highlight her class drop, right? Racing against weaker competition this time. But that 6-month layoff, they call it a concern.
Understandably.
They say she could be a good value bet if she's sharp.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. And Weekend Rags. They mention her recent win, of course, at this track and distance.
Right.
But point out that she's stepping up in class, so.
Tougher competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They question if she has the speed to keep up. But they didn't mention anything about her trainer's impressive win rate in stakes races. We talked about that earlier.
Oh, that's true. They didn't include that. Seems like a significant detail to overlook, especially for a dark horse contender.
Right. It makes you wonder if they're maybe underestimating Weekend Rags a little bit. Okay, so the moment of truth. Their betting recommendations, what are they suggesting?
Let's hear it. Playing it safe. Taking some risks.
Top bet. Win bet on Just a Care. No surprises there.
Logical, I guess.
And for their second bet, a place bet on Karaya. Even if she doesn't win, they're thinking her consistent form, those connections. She's a good bet for a top 2 finish.
Playing it pretty safe so far. What about their third bet?
Show bet on Beauty of the Sea? Sticking with their analysis, I guess, even with our concerns about the track bias.
Yeah, interesting. What about exotic bets? Anything fun?
They do recommend an Exacta box.
Yeah.
Using Just a Care and Karaya.
So betting on them to finish first and second in any order makes sense.
Yeah.
Not too risky, considering those are their top 2 picks.
Right. And then for the trifecta, Just a Care, Karaya, and Beauty of the Sea. In that exact order.
Sticking with their top 3 picks, huh? Playing it pretty safe overall, it seems.
Yeah. No big surprises so far. But hold on, for the Superfecta. They're going with Just a Care, Karaya, Beauty of the Sea, and Freedom Speaks.
Whoa, that's a bold move. With her long layoff and that trainer's win rate, they're really acknowledging her as a long shot, huh?
Yeah, but maybe they think there's a chance she could upset the odds. That payout would be huge.
That's the dream, right. Okay, so, do they have any other insights? Anything about what did they call it? Trainer tricks and holdbacks.
Yeah, they did. They mentioned Brian Lynch's success with horses second off a layoff again,
Yeah,
just to drive that point home, I guess.
really emphasizing their top pick, huh?
And they also pointed out Weekend Rag's recent win here, this track and distance. They suggested she could be a sneaky contender if the others falter.
But still no mention of her trainer's win rate.
Nope, nothing about that.
Interesting. All right, and what about Freedom Speaks? Any more insights there?
They did say that her class drop, combined with the long layoff, could be sign that the trainer is, targeting this race for a return to form.
But no real evidence to support that, right?
Nope, just speculation. So there you have it. The Racing Form reports analysis, their top picks, and their betting recommendations. What do you think? Convinced?
Well, they're definitely thorough.
Yeah.
But I do see some areas where they could have dug a little deeper. They seem to rely a lot on those surface level stats, and they don't really address the track bias fully.
I agree. And overlooking that detail about Jorge Abreu's win rate with Weekend Rags, that makes me think maybe we could make even more informed predictions, using all this information.
Exactly. The Racing Form report gives you a good starting point. But remember, you as the listener, you have the power to go beyond that. Take their insights, combine them with your own observations, your intuition. You might just find an edge.
So before we move on to listener questions, let's take a moment. Really think about everything we've learned. We've analyzed the contenders, factored in the track bias, scrutinized the expert opinions. What stands out to you the most?
You know what strikes me? Even with all this data, all this analysis, there's still that element of unpredictability, With horse racing, there are always things you can't account for. That's what keeps it exciting.
It really makes you realize, right? You can analyze all this data, get the expert opinions, but there's still that element of surprise. Anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, but speaking of opinions, let's see what our listeners have to say. Got some great questions lined up.
Always love a good listener question.
All right, first up we have Sarah. She asks, given the track bias favoring early speed, should we completely discount closers like Karaya and Beauty of the Sea?
Good question, Sarah. I mean, it's tempting to just focus on those early speed horses, right, when you see a track bias like that, but you can't completely dismiss the closers.
So there's still a chance for those late surges.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Think about it. If that early pace is super fast, it could tire out the front runners. Creates an opportunity for a closer like Karaya or Beauty of the Sea to make a move in that final stretch.
So it's all about strategy, right? Timing. Can they conserve enough energy to, capitalize on that opening?
Exactly. Makes it even more interesting, doesn't it? Got to think about all the angles.
All right, we've got another question here. This one's from Mark. He asks, what about those long layoff concerns for Freedom Speaks? Is 6 months too long to be competitive?
6 months is a long time, Mark. Definitely raises some questions. Is she fit? Is she race ready? But remember, the Racing Form report suggested this might be a strategic move by the trainer. Ease her back into competition. Target this race for a return to form.
So do we think that's possible, or is she just too rusty?
You have to weigh the risks and rewards, right? Is the class drop enough to make up for any potential fitness issues? Tough call.
This is giving me a headache. So many possibilities. It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle with 1,000 pieces.
That's handicapping for you. Challenging but rewarding. It's not just about crunching numbers, You have to understand the horse, the race, even use a little bit of intuition.
Okay, let's squeeze in one more question. Jessica asks, should I stick to simple win, place, and show bets? Or are exotic bets worth the risk?
That's a good question, Jessica. It really depends on, your personal risk tolerance, how you like to bet.
Right. Some people like to play it safe. Others,
they want the big payout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those win, place, and show bets, those are straightforward, lower risk, but also lower payouts.
Yeah.
Then you've got your exotic bets, Exactas, Trifectas, Superfectas.
Potentially huge payout.
But you got to predict the finishing order of multiple horses. A lot riskier.
So if you're feeling lucky, confident in your predictions, exotic bet might be tempting. But if you're more conservative, stick with the simpler bets. And remember, always bet responsibly.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so we've reached the end of our deep dive into the ladies' turf sprint. We've looked at the stats, the track bias, the expert opinions.
Yeah.
But we want to leave you with one final thought.
Go with your gut.
No, but really, even with all this information, there's always that element of surprise in horse racing.
That's what makes it so fun. Trust your instincts, enjoy the excitement, and maybe you'll pick a winner.
Maybe you'll even discover you have a hidden talent for handicapping. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See you at the races.